Why? Hello. Welcome back to An Escape from Reality. I'm Jack Brunót, and I talk all things art and entertainment. And today, we are talking about my top 30 albums of 2024. All of these albums came out this year, and we're only talking about the best of the best. I probably could have made a top 100 list for this, but that just didn't feel productive to me. It would have taken you days to listen through all 100 of those albums, so I thought 30 would be a little bit easier for you, considering I know for a fact that right after you finish this video, you're gonna go and listen to all of my recommendations, right? Don't take the list too seriously. This is just an excuse to talk about my favorite albums of this year. Also, I by no means listened to every single album that came out this year. Roughly 40,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify each day. I would need a huge team of people. And if you subscribe, maybe we'll get there. But if your favorite album from 2024 was not on this list, just know it was probably god awful. In addition to the top 30 list, I am also going to be giving away some awards to the albums. Not every single album will get an award. There are specific set categories, and those categories are writing, cover art, unskippability, production, intro track, outro track, cohesion, replay value, and cultural moment. Each album can win more than one award, but don't worry, I didn't get carried away and give every single award to one album. Also, don't think this is going to be an objective list. This is very biased. I am a human being after all. I probably have a different taste than you. But considering there's 30 albums on this list, hopefully you can find a couple more that you like. If we had identical opinions, that would be a little surprising and quite odd. But you'd be pretty sexy for it. I've been doing this list since 2015. However, this was the first year I've ever done it where I went into the list making process without knowing my album of the year. So expect some surprises, some twists, and some turns. I would love to hear your favorite albums of the year in the comments, but I do need to remind everyone we are all here for the same reason. We love music. So bullying each other in the comments section is a waste of time. Last thing before we get into the list, I have my playlist of my favorite songs of the year linked in the description, both Spotify and Apple Music playlists. There is at least one song from each of these albums on that playlist. However, also many, many more. There are around 200 songs on there, so if you don't know what to listen to, go check it out. Okay, now getting into the list, I do want to just quickly give a shout out to some honorable mentions. Against the Fall of Night by Sungazer, Bird's Eye by Raven Lene, Dark Times by Vince Staples, The Dream of Delphi by Bat for Lashes, Dennis by Sega Bodega, and Deadbeat by Jack Kays. Okay, now getting into the list at number 31. Oh, also, this isn't a top 30. This is actually gonna be a top 31 list. There is a particular album that I put at the bottom that I also really wanted to talk about, so just ignore the title of this video and the title card at the beginning of the video, and me referencing my top 30 list. At number 31, we have Hotel La Route by Joanna Wang. This album is by no means for everyone. It is hardly even for me, but I couldn't not talk about it because it is so much fun. Joanna's early discography consists of classical music, but over time she started experimenting and is now more in the Cabernet jazz pop rock field. This is a very theatrical album. I could see it being a soundtrack to a musical. There is beauty, there is energy, and each track is more introspective than the last. Each track title and also the title of the album was inspired by a television series, Kids in the Hall. And while I have never watched that show, it was really interesting doing a deep dive, figuring out which song meant what. As I said earlier, I'm not giving an award to every single album, but I am giving away the first award to this album, which is the Cover Art Award. I mean, look at this thing. I love the color palette and the art style. I love the majority of the covers of all of the albums on this list, but if we're being completely honest, I wanted to talk about this album because of the cover art. I wanted to listen to this album because of the cover art. Next is I Lay Down My Life For You by JPEG Mafia. I have not been the biggest JPEG Mafia fan up until this year. The industrial rap genre has never really been my thing, with the exception of certain little tracks here and there, but I always feel compared to check out JPEG Mafia's work. And personally, I think this is his best yet. Just like the previous album, I would not recommend this to any old hip-hop or music fan, but if you like hip-hop already and you're sick of listening to the same old thing, give this guy a try. It is wild. Random noises and loud 808s matched with JPEG Mafia's ridiculously aggressive and high-pitched flow make for an absolute great time. Next is Manning Fireworks by MJ Lenderman. I did not know much about this band up until this year, but supposedly they are not known for making alt country, but that is what we have here. It is by no means the rootin' tootin' down in the dirt kind of country. It's more of an industrial urban kind of country. Country seems to be having a really interesting renaissance right now. I have more country albums on this list than I ever have in the past. Some quite high on the list as well. I've never been the biggest country fan, but I think that is going to be changing going forward in the future. Next is Metamorphosis Complete by Infinity Song. I am a sucker for contemporary R&B, and this is just a classic example of that. Signed to Jay-Z's record label, Infinity Song is a group of 4 siblings with absolutely gorgeous and angelic voices. The next album on this list at number 27 is When Lightning Strikes, Wear It by Oliver Malcolm. Now, technically, this is an EP, but it has 7 tracks, so I added it to the list. That's according to how the music industry classifies albums and EPs. 7 tracks or more are albums, 6 tracks or less are EPs. So I counted it. And frankly, I had to talk about it because I love Oliver Malcolm. I did not get to give him enough praise for his 2021 record, Are You Living in the Real World? And if I'm being completely honest, that is the real recommendation I have for you. Go check that one out. And if you like it, come back and listen to the one from 2024. Both are very high quality, but I do like his 2021 record just a tad more. It's a nice mesh of psychedelic pop and neo soul with a little modern flair to it. It's very short as well, so it's a pretty easy listen. Next, we have Memoir of a Sparkle Muffin by Suki Waterhouse. She is not just Robert Patterson's girlfriend, and I know me saying that kind of chalks it up as her being that, but she is so much more. She's a fantastic musician, or she's a model. She's an actress, whatever. I know only a select few of you are gonna understand why I just said that, but that's okay. Any fan of Taylor Swift or Chappell Rowan will feel right at home with Suki Waterhouse. A nice flair of catchy dream pop with organic instruments and a soft rock appeal. By Marika Hackman. This is probably the slowest and the quietest album on the list. Every year I am always in need for sad music, and this was my vice for 2024. I hadn't heard of her before this year, but this album got me to do a deep dive on her discography, and I will be completely honest, I am a bigger fan of basically all of her other records, but the fact that this is still on my top 30 does say something that she has a really solid discography. At number 24, we have The Aftertaste by Kenya Grace. This is the last EP on the list. This record is just super catchy. Chances are you have heard the most popular song on the album, Strangers. It was a pretty big TikTok hit earlier this year, and the entire record is just banger after banger. Next, we have Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii. I'm proud to say I've known about her for a couple of years, and I'm super happy to see that she's getting the recognition that she deserves. Yet I still think she is a little bit slept on, so let me pitch her for you. She is on TDE, the former label of Kendrick Lamar and current label of SZA and many other talented artists. She is an intelligent lyricist with an ear for hits, and while this record, what is being called a mixtape, is not super cohesive, there is basically something for everyone on here. Whether it be the aggressive boom bap tracks like the track Boom Bap or Bullfrog, or how about more of an aggressive trap track like Nissan Ultima or GTFO. She's also got some soul tracks as well, like Slide and Huh. If you're a fan of rap and you haven't heard her, you should do so. She's only gonna get bigger from here. And if you're not a fan of rap, I think she would be a good gateway drug for you. Next, we have Big Ideas by Remy Wolf, what I truly believe to be her best record to date. I loved her 2021 record, Juno, but I think we see her really flexing her strengths on this record a lot more. She has crazy pipes, similar to the likes of Mariah Carey or Marvin Gaye. On Big Ideas, she also showed her capability to experiment and not stay in the same box. She leaned a little bit more into the rock side of things on this record as opposed to pop R&B. And surprisingly, her large range of vocals fits really well into that genre as well. Next, we have Glimmer of God by Gene Dawson. Once again, another artist who is putting out their best record this year. Gene took a short break from his aggressive aggressive R&B music to make this more pop-centric record. And frankly, I think this new sound fits him quite well, and it's also not too far off from what he was already doing. While I do think he wears his inspirations on his sleeve like The Weeknd and Don Toliver, it by no means holds him back in any way. At number 20, we have What Happened to the Heart by Aurora. I feel like I'm going to be saying this a lot, but this is another artist putting out their best record to date in 2024. I think it just shows how great of a year we've had. Aurora is known for her soft and haunting songs. Coupled with a quirky internet personality that could be comparable to Bjork, she truly is the whole package in every way. However, her soft vocals were put to the test on this record. She proved this year that she is not just a one-trick pony making the same song over and over again. She stretched out of her comfort zone and made some more aggressive tracks, something that still fit her vocals and sound quite well. A great example of this is her song A Soul with No King. If you want a bit of a softer song, looking at the intro track Echo of My Shadow is a great place to start. I do think the beginning of this record got bogged down a little bit, mainly because it seemed like she was going to be doing the same old thing on this record, but after you get past those first few songs, it really blossoms. And if you've never heard one of her songs before, I don't think it's going to be a negative for you. Next, we have Girl with No Face by Ali X. Looking at the cover art for this record, you may think, oh, this is going to be a dark and spooky metal record. But no, this is a great testament to glam rock and synth pop. Very catchy from start to finish, but by no means a typical pop record. I would even compare it somewhat to the previous album we just discussed, albeit a little bit faster pace. Next, we have Trench by Audrey Nuna, a musician that has proven time and time again that she is able to make a catchy hit, and frankly, she is not appreciated enough for it. While I did really like this record, I think I liked her 2021 record, A Liquid Breakfast, a bit more. On Trench, she really leaned into her hip-hop roots, and that did not hold her back. She's a fantastic rapper, but you know what she also is? An amazing singer. I encourage anyone to go and watch her Tiny Desk performance. It is truly immaculate, and her ability to weave in and out of pocket was also very impressive. I have no doubt that if she continues down the road she's going, she will be big one day. As I said before, if you want to check out her rap stuff, try the album from this year, Trench, but if you want to hear her beautiful voice, check out A Liquid Breakfast from 2021. She also sings on Trench as well, it's just not as prevalent. At number 17, we have Brat by Charlie XCX. I know, how could I possibly be having a Brat summer if it's not my album of the year? I can already hear the criticism. It's literally in my head. I think I am hearing voices. That is for me to know, and for you to not know. Listen, it made the list. Can we just be happy about that? I love it just as much as everybody else. It's just not my album of the year, please. This is by far some of the most fun that I have ever had with a Charlie XCX record. However, it is not my favorite from her. I do like How I'm Feeling Now just a little bit more. What really surprised me about Brat was the quality of writing on this thing. By no means has her writing ever been bad, but that's not why I go to Charlie. I mainly listen to her music because I want to feel like a diva, but after first listen, my main takeaway from this record was, wow, that was well written. After listening to it a couple more times, that's when I really got into the production, which let me say is crazy fun. This just shows that it is still possible to make waves in pop music. I also loved the little additions to the record as well, like the deluxe and also the remixed version of the album with all of those features. We have not seen something like this happen in the music industry in quite some time. And we also had another pretty big music moment this year, which we will be talking about a little bit later. But regardless, I am going to be giving Brat the Cultural Moment Award. All right, next at number 16, we have the self-titled record by Foxing. Foxing took quite a dark turn this year. Going from their more pop rock roots, they shifted into the angelically haunting music of shoegaze. And frankly, I've never been such a proud parent in my life. I've been a fan of these guys for a while. I could sit here and over-explain what this album sounds like, but the best way of putting it is that it's hauntingly beautiful. It will make you feel dread and happiness all at the same time. It's as if you're floating floating through the atmosphere, gazing at a sunrise, and crying your eyeballs out. Chromacopia by Tyler, the Creator is next. Once again, Jesus, please don't complain about it not being number one. I'm gonna be completely honest, I did not love this record on first listen. Most of the time when I listen to Tyler's new records, I click with it immediately, so I was a bit confused at first, especially because this isn't necessarily anything new. It sounds like a nice mix of his two previous records, Igor and Call Me If You Get Lost, both of which I love. But since it's on the list, I think you can guess that it did grow on me just a tad. While I do not think it is his best record, I think it has his best song on it. The whole entire reason I even gave this album a second chance was because of the song Like Him. It's a song about Tyler wrestling with the fact that he feels like he's becoming his father, a man who left him when he was a kid. It is sad. It is beautiful. It has a fantastic feature from Lola Young. If you've never listened to his music or you're on the fence about him, just go and listen to this song and it will change your mind. That's by no means the only good song on here. Most of the other tracks grew on me as well. So if you're not aware, I am a musician myself, which means I do have quite a few musician friends. And every once in a while, their albums will creep onto my list. I am by no means putting this guy's album on here just because I want to shout him out. It very much deserves to be here. We are talking about Plutonium by Emerson Pluto. His 2023 record also made my list last year. Seriously, this kid is going places. If you are a fan of 21 Pilots or 070 Shake, he will be right up your alley. But I would even say that he steps outside of those bounds as well. I'm by no means trying to put him into a box. I actually like his music more than both of those previous artists. His heavy synth pop production makes him stand out from his contemporaries, me being included, I suppose. His production is not the only thing that shines. I have rarely heard someone in person with such a beautiful voice. I've been to a couple of his shows, and I am always amazed with how clean his vocals are and the control of his delivery. He has this one song on his record from last year called Mr. Torncape, and oh my god, it is the most beautiful piano ballad. Emerson, don't you dare ever stop performing that shit. He is also a part of a rap duo known as Raven Crow. His partner in crime, White Mask, is a nice contrast to the brightness of Emerson's presence. They've put out countless bangers this year, many of which are featured in that playlist that I talked about at the beginning of the video that is linked in the description. Go check them out, you will not regret it. Next, at number 13, we have The Great American Bar Scene by Zach Bryan. Zach Bryan was a part of my country renaissance that I talked about a little bit earlier. He's the artist that made me truly understand how beautiful the genre can get, and wow, this album is beautiful. If I were to recommend a record from him, I would start with his self-titled record that came out in 2023, but this is a fantastic follow-up. I've found that I lean more towards folk country, a genre that even toes the line of what is and is not country. If you, like me, are just getting into country, go give him a listen. Also listen to the other country artists that I talk about on this list. There are still a few more to go. Next up, we have Madra by My Dad, New Dad. This is by no means an insult, but this was my background music of the year. The key to good background music is for it to be kind of dreamy and blend into the background, but whenever you decide to tune in, the songs are bangers. And that's this album for you. There are no skips. Our next album is from my sibling, Jack White. We have No Name. The lead singer of the White Stripes has been putting out his own music for quite some time now, and it's very much been in my blind spot. Until now, this is his best so far. I would even go as far as to say it's better than any White Stripes album. No Name is just pure rock and roll flexing. The guitar solos on this record, Jack's passionate delivery, combined into a raspy, unmixed delivery, is something that I did not know I needed. This album is a fantastic example of how a good mix is not always the most important thing. Because objectively speaking, No Name sounds like absolute shit. But it's quite clear that that was on purpose. I think Jack really wanted to capture the sound of classic rock being performed in underground clubs. They focus much more in crafting solid songs and just performing them and calling it good. And I mean, if the song's good, the song's good. Because of this ballsy move, I am going to be giving No Name by Jack White the Cohesion Award. Cohesion is one of the aspects that I look for in any good album, but I think this album really defines it perfectly. None of these songs would fit well on any of his other records, and the songs on those other records records would not fit well on this one. All right, it is that time of the video where we are talking about my top 10 albums of 2024. Will the Katy Perry record be on here? I guess we'll just have to watch and see. At number 10, we have Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. This is her best album. I don't make the rules. I've been a long-time Billie Eilish fan, but I've also been quite critical of her music. I became a fan of her back when she posted Ocean Eyes to SoundCloud. Not to flex, but I am indeed a day one. However, I was not the biggest fan of her debut album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Get the pitchforks and the torches ready. I'll be outside in a minute. I just think Billie Eilish was better than that, having listened to her previous work before that. And to be honest, in my opinion, she proved me right with her next record, Happier Than Ever, which was a banger, a soft banger, but a banger. And then we get to 2024 with Hit Me Hard and Soft. I think this is a more cohesive and mature version of Happier Than Ever. She's got hits, she's got creativity, and if you're not already a Billie Eilish fan, you might as well jump on the bandwagon now. Next, we have Plastic Death by Glass Beach. I feel like this is a sneaky little album that will be making the rounds to all of the music reviewers around the world this year. I'm going to be completely honest, I listened to it earlier this year, completely forgot about it, remembered it, and fell in love a second time. I wrote a couple of notes about this album, but honestly, I don't know how to describe what it sounds like or what it is or what the experience is like. It's crazy, it's beautiful, it's hard-hitting, it's soft, and I know I'm not justifying it very well here, but I'm gonna be giving it the production award. I tried figuring out how to pronounce the title of this album, but I'm just gonna put it up on the side and you can read it for yourself. It's one of two albums that Artemis put out this year, and you have most definitely heard the intro track on this thing. It was a huge TikTok hit in 2024, but no, he is not just this typical TikTok artist making bait music. This album is really fun and catchy. This record reminds me a lot of The Weeknd's early discography, but maybe a little bit faster pace. And oh my God, is this album like really down bad. It's a lot of fun. Easy listening. Throw it on a long car ride. Next, we have What a Devastating Turn of Events by Rachel Chinariri. Great title for 2024. This R&B pop artist leaned more towards the dream rock side of things this time around, and frankly, I hope she sticks around in this genre for a little while longer. Catchy banger after catchy banger. I mean, what else do you want me to say? There is absolutely no downtime or filler on this record, and that is why I am giving it the Unskippability Award. These are for albums that have no skips. Once again, that is a factor that I always take into account when it comes to looking for quality albums, and there are many other albums on this list that don't have any skips. I just feel like this one makes the most sense. They Not Like Us. They Not Like Us. At number 6, we have GNX by Kendrick Lamar. This was that other cultural moment that I was talking about earlier in the video. This man has had one hell of a year. He wins a global sensation rap beef, wins himself a Super Bowl halftime show, and then drops another classic album. If you've been around on my TikTok for a while, you know how big of a fan I am of Kendrick Lamar. I think his discography is basically flawless, but that does make me nervous every single time he drops a new album. Frankly, I should learn to just trust the man at this point because he has not proven me wrong album after album after album. GNX is at number 6, but I actually consider this to be his worst album to date. If that doesn't tell you the quality, describing this album feels kind of pointless. You know it, I know it, we all know it. Some of us love it, some of us don't. Saying that this is the Not Like Us album is only partially accurate. It definitely has songs that are very similar to the West Coast appeal like Not Like Us, whether it be Squabble Up or TV Off with Mustard on it. But of course, this is Kendrick Lamar, so he still had to make a statement on the record as well, whether it be slower tracks like Man at the Garden or the beautiful Introspection of the Heart Part 6. After Drake put out his version of the Heart Part 6. Anyway, good job, Kendrick. I know my approval means a lot to you. Kicking off our top 5, we have Welcome the Night by Sad Night Dynamite. I knew this record was going to be high even before it came out. Every single they dropped just kept hitting. They kept racking up them singles. This is probably the funnest album on the list. They took a more upbeat approach to this record as opposed to their previous self-titled record. Tracks like Sugar Baby and Wake Up Pass Out will have you bumping them for months on end, while the slower and darker pop tracks, similar to their previous record, is still present here, like Dying of Thirst and Knife in the Mud. While there is a lot of flexing all over this record, they are not afraid to take a step back and look at the things that truly matter. I almost put our number 4 spot at number 1. Honestly, from this point forward, I could kind of just switch around all of the albums depending on my day. But here we have Yours Until the War Is Over by Amigo the Devil. This is not going to be for everyone. And while I do think this is dumbing it down, calling this Red Dead Redemption music would not be inaccurate. Amigo the Devil has the charisma to be able to blend Gothic Americana and folk music to his whim, captivating us with Wild West folk tales and his own personal struggles with parenting and drug addiction. The track Once Upon a Time at a Texaco will have you hooting and hollering all the way to the bank. You'll understand what I mean when you listen to it. As opposed to the tracks like Cannibal Within and The Garden of Leaving will leave you on the ground distraught. I'm also going to be giving the outro award to this record. The closing song, Closer, is probably one of the best outros to an album that I have ever heard in my entire life. Anytime I'm listening to this record, if this song comes up, I have to just sit down and take it all in. This is also the only album on this list that will be receiving 2 awards because I am giving the writing award to it as well. Both of these awards were only right for this album, and even though it is not my number 1 album of the year, if there's anything that I would recommend you go listen to, it's this. And as I said, you may not like it, but it will definitely leave an impact on you. At number 3, we have She Reaches Out To She by Chelsea Wolfe. Also known for her Olympic bike riding, when Chelsea gets into the studio, she goes right up to your ear as you're sleeping at night and whispers, "You're late for your dentist appointment." Something truly to scare us all. In all seriousness, this is the darkest record on the list. There is almost nothing appealing about this album, yet somehow it manages to hook you in its claws and make you listen to it over and over and over. Okay, saying there's nothing appealing was kind of a lie. Are we seriously vacuuming right now? It's almost like the world doesn't revolve around me. It's fucking ridiculous. If only Charlie XCX were here, she'd make it stop. This record almost feels like the siren's call, seducing lonely sailors at the dead of night. Very odd record. 10 out of 10. Because we are at our number 2 spot, that means we are getting close to number 1. I learned how to count yesterday. Jack Brunót, flexing my counting skills ever since grade school. At number 2, we have Midas by Wonderhouse. I don't even know how to explain why I like this record. I wouldn't say it is similar to the Chelsea Wolfe album, but I do think I like it for similar reasons. They're both catchy, beautiful, and a little scary all at the same time. I would very much recommend this album more than the Chelsea Wolfe album to the average listener. It's as if you mixed Coldplay with Nirvana. I am giving the intro award to this album. The first track, which is also the title track, is probably the best song on the record, but it only continues on that same playing field. I think this is a good spot to talk about my process for listening to albums. Most of the time, if I see a cover art that seems interesting, I will try 1 or 2 tracks. Maybe I'll hear about a new artist that intrigues me, so I'll try a couple of their tracks. And if I do like 1, 2, maybe 3 of their songs, I will write down the album to listen to for later. I broke that cycle with this record because of this intro track being so good. I listened to this first song and immediately knew that I had to listen to the full record as soon as possible. So I just sat down and listened to it right then and there. So glad I did because I got to get some more listens out of it this year. It's one of my most replayed albums of 2024, but it's not my most replayed album of this year because that goes to my #1 spot, which happens to be the first ever country record to get my #1 spot. My album of 2024 is Trail of Flowers by Sierra Farrell. I'm just gonna say it right off the bat, this is getting the replay value award. I cannot stop myself from listening to this. And whenever it comes to albums like that, it's almost inevitable for it to become my #1. I wasn't sure this was going to be the case going into the list making process, but I mean, here we are. This album is comparable to something like the Amigo the Devil record earlier on this list, but I guess you could kind of say that it's more user-friendly. It leans more into bluegrass as opposed to gothic Americana. I would love to see Sierra perform at some point. I just know the entire venue is stomping their boots and clapping their hands. Even after one listen, you will find yourself singing along to the songs. A great starting point for the album is with the song Dollar Bill Bar. That was the first one that I listened to. Then I listened to Rosemary, which is a little bit more of an unconventional track, as if a folk tale sung by the fire in Appalachia. Trail of Flowers feels like a dedication piece to that music of old, and it's definitely not all fun in games. Sierra very much has something to say on here, whether it be talking about how we shouldn't judge one another on the song American Dreamin', or finding forgiveness in others on the song like Wish You Well. I am so excited to see where she goes in the future. She's already been making a name for herself in the country game, having been featured on Zach Bryan's self-titled record from 2023. I actually found out about her when I saw her performing on social media. Stuffed into a crowded bar, her vocals burst the doors open. She has such a fantastic stage presence, not only in a live setting, but also the recordings of this album. Trail of Flowers by Sierra Farrell is truly a grand old time, and that is why it is my #1 album of 2024. That is it. That is my top 30, or should I say my top 31 albums of 2024. I hope you got a couple more recommendations that you're going to go and check out later on. I would love to hear some of your favorite albums from 2024 in the comments. And if you made it to the end of the list, thank you so much for watching it in its entirety. I'm trying to post pretty regularly going forward into the future, so if you like this video, you might like some of my future videos or maybe some past ones. But before you leave, just remember, don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do with your life. Stay safe out there. Boo-bye.